Info Plus for genuine information.
AITM College, Kumaltar, bringing the future of education.
Kathmandu World School, education for a better future.
National College of Computer Studies, Pagnajul Marg, Kathmandu.
I would definitely choose Global College. Trust me.
Global College of Management, Midbanishwar.
यति पिभिसी छ जमिनसँग नाता वर्षौंसम्म.
Uniglobe College, a pioneer with explorative vision in management education. Info Plus.
Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. के तपाईं यो भनाइमा सहमत हुनुहुन्छ? यदि हुनुहुन्छ भने आउनुहोस्. अबको आधा घण्टा कार्यक्रम इन्फो प्लसलाई समय दिनुहोस्. नमस्कार, म कार्यक्रम इन्फो प्लसको नियमित प्रस्तोता सदीक्षा श्रेष्ठ. एक सातापछि देश विदेशका शैक्षिक गतिविधि, रिपोर्ट र कुराकानी लिएर उपस्थित भइसकेकी छु. यहाँहरूलाई स्मरण गराउँ, कार्यक्रम इन्फो प्लस हरेक सोमबार राति 9:30 बजे र विभिन्न समयमा पुनः प्रसारण हुने गर्दछ. टिभी प्रसारणपछि इन्फो प्लस युट्युब च्यानल, फेसबुक र अन्य सामाजिक सञ्जाल मार्फत समेत कार्यक्रम हेर्न सकिनेछ.
इन्फो प्लस.
आउनुहोस् कार्यक्रमको सुरुवात गरौँ. 32 वर्षभन्दा बढीको एक्सपिरियन्स बोकेको कन्सल्टेन्सी ग्लोबल रिचले आयोजना गरेको अस्ट्रेलियन एडमिसन एन्ड इन्फर्मेसन डे बारे यो रिपोर्ट.
इन्फो प्लस.
ग्लोबल रिच नेपालले अस्ट्रेलियन एडमिसन एन्ड इन्फर्मेसन डेको आयोजना गरेको छ. सेप्टेम्बर 2 तारिखका दिन ग्लोबल रिचकै कार्यालयमा आयोजित उक्त कार्यक्रममा अस्ट्रेलियाका 24 भन्दा बढी शिक्षण संस्थाहरूले सहभागिता जनाएका थिए. अस्ट्रेलिया अध्ययनबारे विभिन्न जिज्ञासा उठिरहेका बेला सो कार्यक्रम आयोजना गर्दा धेरै विद्यार्थी तथा अभिभावक लाभान्वित भएको आयोजकले जनाएको छ.
24 वटा युनिभर्सिटिज र इन्स्टिट्युसन्सहरूको रेप्सहरू आफै आई स्टुडेन्ट्सहरूलाई अन स्पट एडमिसन, इन्फर्मेसन र मेरिट बेसिस स्कलरसिप्सहरूको बारेमा इन्फर्मेसन प्रोभाइड गरिरहनु भएको छ. सो कुनै विद्यार्थी जसलाई अस्ट्रेलियाको बारेमा बुझ्नु छ, इन्फर्मेसन्सहरू लिनु छ, उहाँहरूले आएर चाहिँ ग्लोबल रिचको अफिसमा भिजिट गर्दा भयो. र इफ इन केस कोही स्टुडेन्ट्सहरू यहाँ आउनु पाउनु भएन भने फेरि फर्दर नेक्स्ट इन्टेकको लागि ग्लोबल रिचकै अफिसमा आएर चाहिँ इन्फर्मेसन लिइदिनु होला.
इन्फो प्लस.
अस्ट्रेलिया पछि अब्रोड स्टडीको लागि अर्को पपुलर डेस्टिनेसन हो क्यानाडा. आइपिडीले अस्ट्रेलिया एन्ड क्यानाडा कन्क्लेभ आयोजना गरेको थियो, जसमा 40 भन्दा बढी शिक्षण संस्थाहरूको सहभागिता रहेको थियो. उक्त कन्क्लेभमा ती देशमा उपलब्ध शैक्षिक अवसरबारे विभिन्न सेसनको आयोजना गरिएको थियो. यसै सम्बन्धी अब यो रिपोर्ट कार्यक्रम इन्फो प्लसमा.
इन्फो प्लस.
आइडिपीले अस्ट्रेलिया एन्ड क्यानाडा कन्क्लेभको आयोजना गरेको छ.
IDP एउटा अस्ट्रेलियन स्टक लिस्टेड कम्पनी हो जो चाहिँ यसको दुईटा प्याटर्न्सहरु छ एउटा चाहिँ IDP IELTS र एउटा चाहिँ IDP स्टुडेन्ट प्लेसमेन्ट भनिन्छ IDP IELTS ले IELTS का एक्जाम्सहरु गरेर रिजल्ट्स डिस्ट्रिब्युट गर्छ भने IDP स्टुडेन्ट प्लेसमेन्टले चाहिँ विभिन्न युनिभर्सिटीहरुसँग एडमिसनको कामदेखि लिएर भिजा प्रोसेसिङको काम गर्छ since IDP been more than 4 years now in Nepal student mass अभिभावक mass हामी डे बाइ डे पपुलर हुँदैछौं सबैको चोइस IDP बन्दैछ यसको कारण भनेको सेटिस्फ्याक्सन नै हो स्टुडेन्टको सेटिस्फ्याक्सन रिफरल
40 भन्दा बढी शिक्षण संस्थाको सहभागिता रहेको उक्त कन्क्लेभमा 3 देशमा उपलब्ध शैक्षिक अवसरबारे विभिन्न सेसनको आयोजना गरिएको थियो।
With 34 Australian institutions, university and colleges, 34 participated and 12 are from Canada. So we have done a kind of mix fair with Canada and Australia, and a lot of students are coming till now. Also there is a lot of crowd over there. So also recently yesterday Australian government announced regarding the post-study work visa, right? So पहिला 2 वर्षको ब्याचलर डिग्रीले 2 वर्षको पोस्ट स्टडी वर्क्स राइट पाउँथ्यो भने अब 2 को ठाउँमा 4 हुने भयो ब्याचलर्स डिग्रीलाई मास्टर्सलाई 3 को ठाउँमा 5 इयर्सको पोस्ट स्टडी राइट्स दिने भयो र PhD लाई 4 वर्ष थियो पहिला अब 6 इयर्स दिने भयो सो भेरी गुड न्यूज आर कमिङ अब बिचमा अलिकति भिजाको टेन्ट्रम्सहरु त गइराछ तर भए पनि फ्युचर इज अलवेज Australia is very popular destination and I guess it will bounce back for the quality students. Australia is always there.
नेपालबाट विदेश जाने विद्यार्थीहरूको संख्या बढिरहेको सन्दर्भमा आईडीपीले कन्क्लेभ मार्फत विद्यार्थी तथा अभिभावकहरूलाई यथार्थ जानकारी दिइरहेको थियो। आईडीपीले टेस्ट प्रिपरेसन र काउन्सिलिङ सेवा दिइरहेको छ।
इन्फो प्लस
हिमालय टेलिभिजन एचडीमा आजकै बार र समयमा आउने कार्यक्रम इन्फो प्लस हेर्दै हुनुहुन्छ र म हुँ सदीक्षा श्रेष्ठ। एकैछिन व्यापारिक विश्राम त्यसपछि पुनः कार्यक्रम इन्फो प्लस लिएर हामी उपस्थित हुने नै छौं।
Data is the most valuable thing in the world today. The accumulation of data from variety of online applications and platforms give rise to big data. The importance of big data doesn't simply revolve around the amount of data you have, but how one utilizes it. The use of big data has brought some of the biggest revolution in the digital world, with the ability to detect frauds, predict consumer behavior, avoid crises, anticipate health conditions, and much more. And most importantly, big data is being used to make machines artificial intelligence with increased accuracy and agility. With big data analytics, you can ultimately fuel better and faster decision making, modeling and predicting outcomes, and enhance business intelligence. According to global statistics, the big data market is currently worth $138.9 billion and generates 2.5 quintillion bytes of data daily. To cater such a huge amount of data and ensure its proper uses, there is a massive demand on big data analytics personnel. Give your career a kickstart with our BSc Honors Computer Science course that offers specialized curriculum in big data. The future lies in data, and we are here to help you realize it.
कला तपाईं भित्रै नै छ, हामी त त्यसैलाई कौशल बनाउँछौं। जोश तपाईं भित्र नै छ, हामी त्यसलाई जागर बनाउँछौं। क्षमता छ पक्कै पनि तपाईंसँग, आऊ त्यसलाई योग्यता बनाऊ। प्रतिभा छ तपाईंसँग, त्यसलाई देऊ AITM को perfection. Admissions open in +2, BHM, BSc CIT, BBA, MBA, IMI तथा BCU सँग आबद्ध नेपालको सर्वोत्कृष्ट कलेज AITM कलेज, सातो बाटो ललितपुर, bringing the future of education.
Welcome to my world. Welcome to Kathmandu World School.
Give your child the best of the world right here in Kathmandu.
Hope to see you soon.
Kathmandu World School. Education for a better future.
National College of Computer Studies, NCCS, College of IT and Management, is a highly professional and experienced college based in Kathmandu, which was established in 1999. For further details, National College of Computer Studies, Pagnajul Marg, Kathmandu.
Welcome, Mr. Amal. I have visited Global College many times. I have interacted with your faculty members and students, observed their facilities, and learned about their curriculum. I have spent most of my student life studying abroad. Based on my experience, I can confidently say that the quality of education in Global College matches the international standards. If life gave me a second chance and I had to choose a college, I would definitely choose Global College. Trust me.
Global College of Management, Midbanishwar, Info Plus.
दर्शकवृन्द, ब्रेक पछि पुनः स्वागत छ। अबको क्रममा अर्को एक रिपोर्ट यहाँहरु सामु प्रस्तुत गर्दैछु।
Info Plus.
शिक्षा मन्त्री देवेन्द्र पौडेलको प्रमुख आतिथ्यतामा हायर एजुकेसन इन नेपाल क्वालिटी म्यानेजमेन्ट एन्ड एजुकेसन नामक एक दिने सेमिनार आयोजना गरिएको छ। हिमालय होटलमा आयोजित उक्त कार्यक्रममा नेपालको शिक्षा स्तर वृद्धि कसरी गर्न सकिन्छ भन्ने बारेमा विचार विमर्श र छलफल भएको थियो।
Info Plus.
दर्शकवृन्द, यो रिपोर्ट सँगै लागौं अब हाम्रो नियमित सेगमेन्ट वक्स पप तर्फ। आजको वक्स पप सेगमेन्टमा हामीले सोधेका थियौं नेपालको विकास किन हुन सकेन। उनीहरूको कुरा जस्ताको तस्तै।
कुनै पनि देशको विकास र समृद्धि भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ त्यो देशको मूल नीति राजनीतिसँग सम्बन्धित हुन्छ। त्यसले चाहिँ नीति निर्माण बनाउने कुरादेखि लिएर नीति निर्माणको सही कार्यान्वयनको कुरा गर्ने उद्यम छ। एउटा चाहिँ पोलिसी बनाउने, प्लान बनाउने, त्यसको एक्जिक्युट गर्ने, त्यसमा चाहिँ एउटा डेडिकेसन चाहियो, कन्सन्ट्रेसन चाहियो, फोकस चाहियो, विल पावर चाहियो, रिवार्ड एन्ड पनिसमेन्टको कुरा हुनुभयो। तपाईँले त्यस कारणले यो देशमा चाहिँ अरू मूल कुरा चाहिँ अनुशासन हो। कुनै पनि देश विकास भनेको अनुशासित हो। जो मान्छेले जे पोस्ट लिएको छ, जुन जिम्मेवारी लिएको छ, त्यो कुरा गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ।
नेपालमा पनि गुणस्तरीय शिक्षा हुँदाहुँदै पनि अहिलेको विद्यार्थीहरूको माहौल स्वदेशको अध्ययनभन्दा पनि विदेशतिर जाने परिपाटी बढेको छ। अब यो बढ्नुको पछाडिको कारण भनेको एउटा स्वदेशमा पढिसकेपछिको भविष्य अन्यल देख्नु हो र अर्कोतिर भनेको विदेशमा गइसकेपछि छोटो समयमा आफ्नो अध्ययन पुरा गरेर र कमाउँदै पनि गर्यो, पढ्दै पनि गर्यो। त्यो हिसाबले धेरै विद्यार्थीहरू बाहिर गइरहेछन् र बाहिर जाने सवालमा मुलुकले, राज्यले पनि बाहिर जाने विद्यार्थीहरूलाई केही सहुलियत प्रदान गरे जस्तो पनि देखिराखेको छ र एनओसी दिने कुरामा पनि सहज ढङ्गले दिइरहेको भएको कारणले पनि विद्यार्थीहरूको पलायन हुने क्रमहरू बढिरहेको छ।
राजनीति यसरी बिरेको छ, कार्यपालिकाको हालत त्यस्तो छ, व्यवस्थापिका त्यस्तो छ, न्यायालयको हालत तपाईँ देश हुन्छ, अख्तियारको त्यो हालत छ। त्यस कारणले जसले जे गरे नि हुने यस्तो व्यतिथिहरू छ, चाहिँ सही ढङ्गको चाहिँ गल्ती गर्नेलाई चाहिँ कानुनको दायरामा ल्याइँदैन। त्यस कारणले यो एउटा प्लानिङ छैन, भिजन छैन, मिसन छैन, गोल छैन, अब्जेक्टिभ छैन, विल पावर छैन, डेडिकेसन छैन। जसरी पनि कमाउने, लुट्ने, अवसर चाहिँ आफू पोस्टमा पुगेला चाहिँ एउटा अवसरको रूपमा लिने र एउटा चाहिँ राष्ट्रको लागि भन्दा पनि व्यक्तिको, परिवारको हितमा चाहिँ एउटा नीति निर्माण बनाउने मान्छे र कार्यान्वयन तहमा भएको देशप्रति उत्तरदायी नभएको कारणले यो देश विकास हुन सकेको छैन। यस्तै प्रवृत्ति रहने हो भने अझ 100 वर्ष विकास हुनेवाला छैन।
आउँदो 10 वर्षभित्रमा मुलुकमा शिक्षित जनशक्ति चाहिँ कम हुँदै जाने अवस्था तड्कारो रूपमा देखिन्छ र यसतिर चाहिँ सरकारले बेलैमा सोच्नुपर्ने जरुरी देखिन्छ। यदि सोचिएन भने भोलि गएर एकदम शिक्षित र एउटा केही गर्न सक्ने सामर्थ्य भएको व्यक्तिहरू चाहिँ विदेशमा गइदिँदाखेरि मुलुकको भावी सन्ततिका लागि चाहिँ एउटा अन्धकार हुन सक्ने स्थितिहरू पनि देखा पर्न सक्छ।
अब लागौँ आजको विशेष कुराकानीतर्फ। आजको कुराकानीमा हामीले समसामयिक विषय समेट्ने प्रयास गरेका छौं। आउनुहोस् आजको यो कुराकानी प्रारम्भ गरौं।
Info Plus.
Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much.
Also, welcome to Nepal.
It's beautiful. I love Nepal.
So let's start with my first question. Australia is known for its quality education, and also a very good number of Nepalese students travel there for to pursue their higher education.
Yes.
So in general, how is the education policy does Australia have?
Oh, if I talk generally about international students, if I can. Firstly, we very actively encourage students from overseas to come to study in Australia for a range of reasons.
Like?
For the reasons, people-to-people links. We want to build up a stronger regional relationships. So international education is a form of diplomacy, I suppose. Of course, there are benefits as well. There are economic benefits for that, both for the students and for Australians as well. And we have a very, as you would be well aware and your viewers would be well aware, we have a very multicultural community, and we find that has added to the richness of Australian society. And so the more students that we have coming to Australia, the greater the richness of our society, the greater cultural understanding that we have. And also it allows, if you like, the ways that we do things, whether it is our legal systems, our communication systems, our technologies, it allows us to share those. And the more that we share those, the more that, without losing our own cultural traditions, the more that we speak to each other and we have joint prosperity out of that. And that also leads to, I think, regional security as well.
So does that policy ensure the protection of students, let's say in a broader sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
So how does it?
Yes, yeah. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm here in Nepal at the moment, is to, I'm giving a workshop tomorrow, and is to a range of education agents, and there may be some providers as well, around the protection systems for students. We have, Australia has, I think, one of the, not only I, but it's well recognised globally that Australia has one of the strongest protections for international students. I mean, we would want, if my children were travelling overseas or studying overseas, I would want them to be protected, if you like, by whichever country they go to, and we feel the same. You know, we will look after your children just as we would want you to look after ours. So we have a legislative framework. That ensures that, and this goes back several decades. We have the Education Services for Overseas Students Act or legislation, and that framework underneath it has other codes of practice, other regulations and what have you to ensure quality for students. So the protections for students range from their investment. So that is the money that the students pay, because it's, you know, it costs a lot of money to study overseas in any country. So we have a tuition protection service. So if for example, an education provider could no longer teach a student the courses that the student was enrolled to study, if the provider is unable to refund the students, then the government will step in and either find alternative courses for the student to study, or provide a refund for the unspent tuition fees for that student. We have a national code of practice for providers of education for overseas students, or what we call the National Code. And that National Code has 11 standards by which all of our education providers have to adhere for the protection and welfare of students. And that goes from even before a student leaves their country. It goes to the marketing and the advertising, and it ensures that that the marketing and the advertising have to be truthful. It can't be misleading. It goes to, there's even a standard in the National Code for education agents. Nepal has a plethora of education agents that are providing information to students to come and study abroad. So
all that comes under legislative framework?
It does. And so if something does something wrong, we have regulators. We have the sheriffs, if you like, yes. And we have one for higher education, the Tertiary Education Quality Standards Agency, and in vocational education and training we have the Australian Skills Quality Authority. And
so how does Australia structure policy for this education? Like you just mentioned vocational education and higher academic education. So how does Australia structure the policies for these different categories?
Oh, well, that's a big question, okay. But within the department that I work, the Department of Education, which is similar to your Ministry of Education, we have various divisions. We have an international division, for example, which coordinates policy and what have you for international education. But we also have a higher education division, and we did have in our department the vocational education and training and skills division as well. That's now moved across into another department, but we have dedicated divisions that coordinate policy and legislation in higher education and in vocational education and training for domestic Australian students, and then there's an overlay of additional legislation and policy for international students as well, because we realise that international students have particular needs, they have particular vulnerabilities as well, and so we make sure that there is this extra layer of protection for students as well.
So how's the demand of vocational education out there?
Oh, it's huge. Vocational education demand is huge. You know, it depends on the country, and it can depend on the region in the country, and there's often this dance between higher education and vocational education. But in Australia, one of the things about Australia is it's probably the most highly regarded in terms of its vocational education and training policy and structure. It's advice on the skills needs of industry are fed into government, and so the sorts of training that's provided meets the skill needs of the country, but also the people that deliver that training are people who once were the practitioners or are still the practitioners of it. So, for example, somebody who is delivering tourism training used to work in the tourism industry, or somebody who is teaching hairdressing used to be a hairdresser, and now they've done extra training to become a teacher, to do that, for example. You know, in higher education, our universities are independent. They have to meet both vet providers and tertiary education providers have to meet particular very, very high standards in order to be registered and in order to maintain the registration. But one thing that we realise in Australia is the value of vocational education and training. I know historically, and my own father was the same, he would say, never work with your hands, son, you know, get a job in an office, right? But now, those tradespeople, men and women, among the highest paid and highest skilled as well. So it's an absolutely booming industry. And I noticed in Nepal, there's, as I talked about, a bit of a dance there, where at the moment there are about 500 or so more students enrolled in higher education than vocational education, but there's switching that's going on, yes. So
that's good for Australia itself.
Oh, absolutely it is, yeah. Because also those students that are in Australia, whilst they're studying and they're picking up those skills, they're also delivering those skills when they take on a part-time job as well to supplement their study as well.
So there's no doubt that Australia does provide a quality education. So, however, it is equally important that we provide quality information about the education as well. So,
yes.
Do you see any definite, precise mechanism or if you see the mechanism to feed the quality information about Australian education in South Asia, how do you see it?
There is so much information out there, and I commented before your interview with Monica Kennedy from Austrade recently. The Study Australia website is perhaps the starting point for students in terms of getting information not only about what to study, where to study, but also about the kinds of supports for students in Australia, about Australia itself, you know, the sort of cultural information, the practical information that you need. That's one starting point. But Australia's education providers themselves, all of the universities, for example, have offices dedicated just to international students, and they have a whole range of information. Yes, about study, about work, about employment, about your rights as a student, about where to live, how to live, about the sorts of challenges that you might face, mental health support and other supports as well. So the institutions themselves have a whole range of information, and they are obliged, by the way, to provide that information to students, and that is amongst in the National Code that I spoke about earlier. It talks about the sorts of support that needs to be provided to students. And then, of course, you have your agents and consultants. And there are some very good agents out there who provide, again, that range of information, because they effectively work for the education providers, and so they provide that range of information to students to help them on their journey to Australia, one would hope.
So at this moment you are here to provide the workshop.
Yes.
So to provide the quality education that we just talked about, the quality information.
Yes.
So if we see the frequency of the visits like this, not in online mode, offshore mode, so what is the frequency? Like, how do you often come to Nepal to give workshops like this?
So this is my second visit this year. Of course, the pandemic prevented any travel, and I came to Nepal effectively as soon as I could. We would normally, the education counsellor my role and the Minister Council and our team are based in the High Commission in New Delhi, we would normally come to Nepal at least 3 times a year, maybe 4 times a year, okay? We look after all of South Asia, so there are 7 countries that we look after. But as I say, I came here in May and spoke to education agents about quality, and that's what I'm doing again tomorrow. I'm explaining that Education Services for Overseas Students framework. I'm explaining the National Code. I'm talking about education providers, universities, vet colleges. I'm explaining their obligations in terms of their undertakings to students, the sorts of information that they need to be providing. What I did find, I've done 3 workshops in India a couple of weeks ago, and I expect I'll find that exactly the same here in Nepal, is that this 2 years of the pandemic, students haven't been travelling. Some have gone to other countries whilst Australia's borders have closed, and so they've forgotten about what the standards are. They've forgotten about the National Code. They've forgotten some of those things, and there have been consultants that have only just started with agents, and so they don't have this knowledge. And part of my role is to begin to refresh people or to stimulate people's interest in these things. Yeah.
So, last, is there anything that you would like to say to our viewers or Nepalese students?
I would want to say that Australia really loves students. Nepali students have a reputation of being very, very hardworking.
Wow.
They do. Very hardworking, very dedicated students. Australia is clearly an attractive place for Nepali students because Nepali students are number 3 in terms of the highest number of students that come to study in Australia.
That supports the GDP of Australia.
Well, it does, and then it also supports Nepal with those skills and learnings
Nepal
coming
is the 3rd
back.
largest country that supplies.
Yes, it's their largest, yeah. You know, in Australia, we talk about the attractiveness of Australia as a destination, the beaches, all of those sorts of things, and the people. You know, it's an experience for us to have Nepali students in our community as well, and of course the Nepali diaspora, those Nepalese people that are live permanently in Australia now. It's a really wonderful experience for us as well to have, to have you as members of our community as well. So we just, I can't say enough how much we enjoy these sorts of interactions.
All right,
Yeah.
Thank you for giving your time. Thank you for this wonderful conversation, and I hope you have a good stay here in Nepal.
I will. Thank you very much. A pleasure. Thank you.
Info Plus.
यो विशेष कुराकानी सँगसँगै आजका लागि इन्फो प्लसको निर्धारित समय सकिने लागेको छ। इन्फो प्लसमा समेटिएका विषय र समेटिनुपर्ने प्रसङ्गका बारेमा हामीलाई फिडब्याक पठाउँदै गर्नुहोला। हाम्रो ठेगाना यस प्रकार रहेको छ। आजको एपिसोडबाट म प्रस्तोता सदीक्षा श्रेष्ठ लगायत सम्पूर्ण इन्फो प्लस युनिटलाई बिदा दिनुहोस्। नमस्कार।
Info Plus, for genuine information.